Okay, hi guys and welcome to the show, and today we're going to be discussing 3 works of literature about Japan. Now, first of all, we have this biography called Hirohito, The Making of Modern Japan by Hubert P. Bix, and it won a Pulitzer Prize, and I must admit it is a really intense book. I mean, it goes into a lot of detail. There is the emperor there in 1902, and you know, Hirohito was the 124th emperor of Japan, and he reigned from 1926 all the way to 1989. So, you know, pretty much most of the 20th century, and it really is an interesting new look on the modernization of Japan, and as this book especially focuses on World War II. Now I'll read you synopsis. It says, though one of the most hated World War II leaders, together with Hitler, Stalin and Mussolini, no one has ever written a full-length biography of Emperor Hirohito, mostly due to the secrecy of Japanese society, where responsibility for war atrocities still has not been acknowledged. It is in large part consequence of the US spin control after the armistice. Fearful of a civil war, General MacArthur invented this fiction of Hirohito as a peaceful emperor, whose symbolic power was abused by his war-hungry underlings. In this biography, Bix reveals that could be nothing further from the truth. Groomed as the supreme warlord from early childhood, Hirohito was firmly in control of his troops up until his surrender. Everything, including his love for science and his visit to the UK, he adopted to strengthen and maintain his vast and deeply rooted imperial power. Playing the army against politicians who were frequently murdered or committed suicide, no major decision was ever taken without being passed by him. So, quite a controversial book, and it basically reveals a kind of history that hasn't really been told before in the Western world, and it's done in immense detail, and an amazing amount of research must have gone into this book. And I do recommend it, and it is quite a tough read. It took me ages, but it really helps you understand Japan the way it is now, and especially why they were so fanatical during World War II. So then we have here, this is Hagakure, which is the Book of the Samurai, and this is, and please forgive my pronunciation, it's written by Yamamoto Tsunitomo. Jesus, I completely butchered that, but it doesn't matter. Now, it's worthy to point out that this book is about 300 years old, and it's about Bushido, which is the way of the warrior, which is a kind of a code that the samurais live by. It doesn't have an overriding narrative. It's just basically a collection of quotes, of short little stories, and kind of little observations and advice. I tell you what it's like. It's like 48 Laws, but for the samurai. And I'll give you a few examples. A really good, a few of my favorite quotes is, if one is overly strict, his subordinates will become untrustworthy. If he overtrusts, his subordinates will become unruly. Another one would be, Once a person has reached enlightenment in one thing, he will have enlightenment. He will have an enlightened mind and understand many things. Another one would be, a favorite of mine would be, a warrior is worthless unless he rises above others and stands strong in the midst of a storm. So these are really cool little quotes, and it's something you can just dip into, and there's also I believe there's some other great works on Bushido if you're interested. And then finally we have Lone Wolf and Cub, and it's written by Kazuo Koike and Gosaki Kojima, and it's beautifully illustrated. And people sometimes give graphic novels a bit of a hard time. This originally came out in 1970 and ran all the way to 1976, and the reason why people give graphic novels a hard time, they dismiss them as childish, but actually, as you can see, beautiful illustrations. Lone Wolf and Cub refers obviously to the character Ogumai and his son Digoro, and so that's where the Lone Wolf and Cub come from. And basically he's a hired assassin, and throughout, I think there are 28 volumes of this, and I have a few of them here. And people give comics a hard time, but these manga comics are really very adult, and they're quite explicit, they're extremely violent. There's often sex and quite graphic violence, and it's very adult in content. This is definitely not, this is definitely not for children, okay? But they're a fun read. The tales are often about kind of honor and tradition and espionage and betrayal and these kind of typical themes and kind of samurai stories of this period. And I intend to collect them all. They're just absolutely beautiful, really cool stories. And I have the first 5 volumes, and I do intend to, when I finish these, buy all 28. So anyway, 3 really good examples of kind of a look at Japan and its history. In 3 completely different ways. So we have an ancient, well, not ancient, but a book from the time of the samurais. Then we have a fun kind of adventures and fictional stories in manga, and then, in my opinion, probably the best contemporary book on Japanese history. So those are my recommendations, and tell me what you think, if you have enjoyed any of these works, and please add a comment. If you have any further recommendations on Japanese culture or history I should check out, please share, and thank you. Okay, ciao.